So what is the next big step for PUBG? Where are we at currently in the state of the game right now? And what can we look forward to in the distant future? Now, it's been a while since we've really kind of sat down and just talked about PUBG and the state that it's in currently and where we think it's going to be headed. It's interesting because PUBG might feel like it's at like a dry point or a standstill right now with content because nothing really that major or big has been announced and we don't really know what's kind of on the horizon. There are some things and inklings of information that we have, but when you really dive into it, there's a lot more to unpack than really meets the eye. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, that being said, as always, if you guys do go on to enjoy the video today, then please make sure to go ahead and drop it a thumbs up, as that would help me out a lot. Subscribe if you are new to the channel, of course. I would really appreciate it. We are less than 1,000 subscribers away from 250,000, so thank you all for the support. And last but not least, guys, I'm streaming every single night over on Twitch. Link is down below. If you guys want to interact with me and hang out with other people in the community, that is the best way to do it, and I highly encourage it. A lot of you guys have been coming up to the streams recently and really enjoying it, so thank you again for that. PUBG's been in kind of an odd spot for the past month, I would say. We've had a little bit of, really good updates come out, especially with the DBS, and some really good updates to the sound that they ended up changing. But as far as like the direction of the game and overall having a roadmap, a lot of the stuff that we knew about in the previous roadmap has already been covered, and most of this has been added to the game already. So it's like kind of what's next. And I want to talk through this video through the scope of the big picture of PUBG. I don't want to just look at what are the next upcoming small updates, because I want to look a little bit further than that. A lot of the stuff that I want to discuss, keep in mind, is going to be big picture stuff about this game. I feel like most PUBG players would agree with me that the past couple of months of this game have been treated relatively well. Like, they've been good months for PUBG in a lot of ways, specifically with Erangel Remastered being a really big highlight. It's pretty remarkable how that worked out because no other BR has ever physically pulled it off, remastered the map that made their game popular and great, and still managed to retain what made it special. And so the past couple months have really focused around, as far as map design goes, on Erangel Remastered, and the community, I think as a whole, really is receptive to it. I haven't seen many people complaining about Erangel Remastered. Of course, it has its flaws, but the majority of people are willing to accept that this is just a better version of the original Erangel. Now, aside from a new map, obviously, that's the big selling item, but they've also had a little bit more minor updates, such as the ledge grabbing mechanic, some new weapons as the DBS added. These were all amazing stuff. Things that are filler content in the game in a good way, things that are kind of fleshing out and making the game more whole. A fair criticism of PUBG, especially early on, is that it was just lacking features and lacking critical things that need to be in the game to make sense, and ledge grabbing is one of the things at the moment that has really been worked on quite a bit and is still going to continue to get work as far as we know. It's also really worth noting that the state of the game is much better when PUBG is not only consistent with their updates, but also communicative about it, and they've been a lot better at that as of recently, where instead of releasing content on a somewhat random and unplanned schedule, we can kind of expect when we're going to get major updates, and then that stuff comes along very quickly over to console, which they've reduced the space between the updates that these platforms get, which is a great thing in my opinion. And of course, something I think PUBG Corp doesn't get enough credit for is how closely they are in tune with their community. There's a lot of other games where their communities are telling them maybe how things should be ran or how things could be improved, and those changes are never implemented, nor do they ever feel like they're being heard by anybody. But PUBG takes in any and all criticism to heart. We may not agree ultimately what they decide to do at the end of the day for their game, but it is important that you guys remember that they are always listening to us. They are always taking feedback, and honestly, our input is paramount to them. Even despite all that, though, sometimes it is very difficult to get a grip on what PUBG is planning to do with their game, or even the direction that they want to go in. Now, as I said, the past couple months have all been about Erangel Remastered. That was the centerpiece of those updates, but what's next? It seems as if, because of the recent leaks of the Season 5 pass, the next season is called Badlands, and honestly, because of not only that, but plenty other hints, I really strongly feel that this is hinting towards Miramar Remastered. I think this is a good idea for them to do for a couple of different reasons, in fact. Number one is, not only did Erangel Remastered work as proof of concept that they can retake a map that they've already made and just do it better, but also because this is one of the only options they have for creating a new map that doesn't hurt matchmaking. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because that's a quite important subject, but they've kind of found the catalyst here. They found the exception. They can make maps still brand new, but not affect the player base. Of course, that does require sacrificing the old map, but if it's in sake of having a new and better version, I don't see a problem with that. Now, that's great and all, but the question then becomes, well, what happens when they remaster all of their current maps? What happens when all 4 of the base maps that we can play every single day, they get remastered, then what's the next move? Are we going to get a brand new map? Like, what's the deal? Right now, I think that might be a little bit too far in the future to predict correctly. So something may happen that we have no idea about that will change this game. But this seems to be the direction that they're heading in. I feel like if Miramar Remastered is a success, there's no reason not to do it to Sanhok, and then maybe even eventually Vikendi. The big looming threat for the state of PUBG as of recently has been the matchmaking. That's kind of been the biggest problem to tackle, and they've done a multitude of different things to address it, such as changing the way the servers are actually located, and a bunch of different things, but one of the biggest was skill-based matchmaking. Now, I made an entire video about this. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go check it out if you want to know exactly what it is, but if you have watched it, I want to clarify something that I probably didn't quite clearly say in that video, and that's the fact that I have no problem having a skill-based matchmaking like setup, like having that as a mechanic. However, my problem is forcing players who want to play casually into that ranked setting. I don't think is a good idea. Ideally, in a perfect world, we would have a casual mode and then a ranked mode for players who actually want to play competitively, which, by the way, we know is coming soon. There was a PUBG podcast with Brian Corrigan, who works over at PUBG, and he mentioned that near the end of the year, which it's kind of getting close to that eventually, I'd say we might hear something around November, December, but they're planning to add a better version of a ranked mode, and whether that is the skill-based matchmaking being tested on it or not, I have no idea, but I just don't think forcing players into that mode of playing is a good idea. I'm actually in favor of having a skill-based matchmaking mode, like ideally, as long as it's compensated with rewards, it's a proper ranked mode, but you can also play casually if you so wish to. That's all I was trying to get at. Now, they have done the skill-based matchmaking test already. Those are over. They tested it for 2 or 3 days, and we don't know the results of what they pulled. They actually haven't tweeted anything about whether they're implementing it into the game, whether they're changing it. They didn't even explain how it works. They were super vague about the specifics of that feature, and it just kind of left us scratching our heads like, is the matchmaking any different? Am I actually playing with better players, or what's the deal? The issue here is that there might not be enough players to fill both playlists. If there is a ranked mode and there is a casual mode, that is yet another divide, and that's the last thing this game needs right now. I feel like the only way to remedy this is to somehow get more players on this game, but the question is, how do you do that? I guess what I'm really confused about right now is, if someone could explain this to me in the comment section, please do if you feel like you know the answer. But there's a lot of games right now. PUBG is only one example. Fortnite and even Apex are also good examples of this. It's like these games have great viewership online. There's tons of people interested in these, but it seems like almost universally the queue times for these games are just not what they used to be. They're significantly slower, and there's just less people playing. But that doesn't correlate equally with what the numbers say online. Like if you look at the viewers that these games pull both on YouTube and Twitch, there should be, you would think, no problem getting matches because there's players who are interested in playing this all the time, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. This is something I've not really been able to quite explain. I don't know if anybody can. Like, for example, crossplay on PUBG was recently announced, and I expected that to essentially save what was on console at the moment, and we actually tried it out on stream, and we still struggled to find games. Like, even though now 2 consoles are both able to play together, that's 2 potential pools of players who could no longer match with each other and we're still having trouble finding games in first person. It's like that absolutely blows my mind because I know these games have players. And again, I want to be very clear, this isn't just a PUBG thing. Other games like Fortnite, people are experiencing 12-13 minute queue times just because there's not enough people queuing for that lobby. This is definitely one of the biggest problems that not only PUBG but battle royales in general need to face is this idea that it's cutting out its player base every single day, and it gets smaller and smaller until it constricts on itself. Maybe they think skill-based matchmaking is an answer for that. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. I think maybe something that's good for it is the PUBG story game that's coming out soon. I feel like this, because it's being developed by an entirely different studio, is only going to be good for the PUBG franchise. It'll get players that are previously uninterested in the game, maybe, down to try it. It should theoretically get more people invested into the story and the overall, franchise of Battlegrounds itself. The question is, when is that going to release, and will it be too late by then? I hope not. But all of this kind of starts to paint the picture pretty clearly. It seems like the downfall of every battle royale game is the player base cutting out all of the casuals, and that's kind of what's going to happen. Is those players are going to be eaten up by the players who play for 6-7 hours a day, and then that player base will continue to constrict on itself until there's physically not enough players left. That's what will happen if you let it run its course. Now, the golden question, if any game in the entire world could answer it right now, is how do you get casuals back on your game? And I'm not saying casuals in a sense that they're bad players. I use that term very loosely. What I mean is players who aren't as invested as content creators, streamers, and very hardcore players who enjoy the game every single day are. That's just not how it is. People who kind of just look on this game from afar and try it out every now and again just to have fun. How do you get those people back into it? Because it's overwhelmingly difficult to jump back into a game where the skill gap has increased so far. You're stuck playing catch up for a very long time, and that just turns a lot of people off to never want to play it again. And I think that's what they're trying to address with skill-based matchmaking. It addresses the right problem, but I don't think it's the right solution. And again, they haven't officially announced what they decided to do with that either. Maybe they're going to transfer that into the ranked mode, and we may have both, which would be ideal for me. But again, we need players to fill those queues. So you see the conundrum here. You see where the state of the game has gone and kind of what they're going to do in the future, because whenever they do release new maps, you see a spike in the player count. That happens every single time. There was a pretty solid peak when Aaron Going Master dropped in. Like, that was great to see. Hopefully the same thing would happen with Miramar, as it is considered another classic map, and hopefully we would get some other players, maybe some older ones, invested back into the game who maybe haven't touched it in a while. The good thing here, though, the silver lining, is that PUBG, in my opinion, is kind of timeless, right? I see it as sort of like the CSGO of the battle royale genre, where it's maybe not the most like popular thing at the moment, but it's always going to have this base that's incredibly passionate about the game, that is always behind it no matter what, and is very invested in new stuff. I see that happen time and time again with PUBG, which that's certainly the one optimistic thing I can say about this. I don't know how to stress it enough. There are a lot of people still invested in this game, but we need to get them back on as players instead of, simply just observers. Now, however that happens, none of us can say right now what the best route is. Maybe it's the single player game that just goes big and gets, kind of like a PUBG renaissance sort of for the battle royale. Whatever happens, we can definitely take away that what's coming up next for PUBG is that they are remastering their current experiences, and I think they're just trying to refine the game and what it can offer as a whole, instead of worrying about making brand new stuff that we've never seen before, some novelty things that we're gonna awe at just because it's new. They're working on taking what makes this game great and just doing it better with more polish. All I can tell you guys is that I'm gonna be behind this game 100% to the very end. I'm gonna be riding with PUBG, and I didn't want this video to come off like negative or even like down at all. This was more of an optimistic video in my opinion, because we have a little bit of direction of what to expect next. Obviously, they don't like to spoil everything and tell us what they have planned, because they want to leave some stuff to mystery, and that's what kind of keeps us on our toes. But having a general direction of what to expect is also good for players who want to stay invested. You've seen what Fortnite has been doing the past couple of days, where they literally have kind of rebooted their own game, and I don't think PUBG needs to be that drastic with what they're doing, but I think there are ways that maybe require you to think outside the box a little bit to get players reinvested into this and playing once again and filling up these servers. And so I think that's the biggest hurdle to kind of climb right now for PUBG, but I'm very optimistic still about the direction of the game, and that's currently the state that we're in. So hopefully whatever they decide to do ultimately is beneficial for the game. But anyways, guys, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. What do you think of the current state of PUBG, and what would you do to fix the matchmaking issue, if anything? If you can think of any tangible solution to the problem, just because it's not easy to tackle. There's no really simple answer that can be derived from this, I think. But anyways, guys, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you are brand new, of course. Go follow my Twitch. Again, link will be down below in the description before you go. But I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you all on the next stream or the next video. Take it easy, and peace out.